Journal number 14, from visual acuity to legal blindness, the journey basically. Um, Interesting week thus far. It's one of the things that I always talk about is I find that I can still do the majority of things, just have to do them differently, short of driving a car, obviously. So with mine, for anybody who hasn't heard me yet, um, I'm hovering around somewhere in between 14 to 15 and a half inches of functional vision, as I call it. Depending on when you check it, what day, I guess how tired the eyes are or whatever, I don't know. But it's about what it is. So what that essentially means is that's about how far it is till a reasonably sized letter is legible, is the way I would word it. Beyond that, it gets varying degrees of fuzzy. But um, as an example, something that I can do, but it do differently, and I was working with this week, is I have a small tractor, and I'll know I can't drive on the road. It requires you to read signs. Pine trees and bushes don't have letters on them, so not as big of a problem with that part. However, it does get fuzzier the further and further out you go, even without like reading things. So if I go too far out, yeah, a pine tree turns into a blob. But the closer in, you can make out more detail. I mean, there's still fuzz around and all that. An interesting piece on that would be that in years past, decades past, I had a goat farm, had 40 head of goats, had a couple of things out there, and used to run tractors all the time. I'm very, very accustomed to it. And I would haul like about out of you know where. That's not the case anymore, for certain. I have it set in basically slow, lower, and so I'm putting around, I guess is the best way to say it. But I'm doing that because I can't tell the changes in the land. Now I've walked it. I know that there's not a cliff. I'm not going to roll over, as long as I'm careful and not being stupid. So I'm not going fast, and that's what it comes down to. I'm taking my time. When that way I've got plenty of reaction time. If there's a pothole that I don't remember appropriately or whatnot, and it starts to dip, I can very easily back off and whatnot. So that would be the big difference. Can I still run a tractor like I did, 20, 30 years ago? No. Can I still run a tractor? Yes. I just do it differently. And that was one of the things that was new this week for me, and I was pleasantly surprised that I could get it done. I did have to take some additional steps that I'm not used to. Like for instance, before when I would dig a hole with a tractor, I could tell, I'm about X feet deep or whatever. This time not so much. So I had to use more of how much of the bucket had disappeared as a gauge of roughly how deep said hole might be. And I had to get off the tractor a number of times and physically measure it because I just couldn't tell the depth of it. Things look very flat to me a lot of times. As I said in one of my previous videos, standing at the top of an escalator and look down, I know what it should look like because I've had vision my whole life, but that ain't what it looks like. It looks like it's flat, and it's the biggest mind trick you could ever realize. I don't know how to explain it to you. It really looks flat, and yet your brain's going, "That ain't flat, dude. That ain't flat." So, things like that with the depth piece, they're a challenge, but they're not a challenge you can't deal with. You just got to do it a little different. I dropped a stick into the ground that I knew how long the stick was. So even though looking at it, it looked relatively flat, I knew the stick was in the ground about a foot and a half because of how much it disappeared, and things like that. So, I was surprised that I was able to navigate that as well as I did. I'm not saying 20, 30 feet out that that I could tell you a lot of what was going on. I mean, it gets blurry and blurry, but within a reasonable distance, yeah. No, I can make out what a pine tree is versus a piece of grass, obviously. I was going to say a pine tree to an oak tree, but I thought about that. I'm not sure I could. I don't know. I'll have to look at that and see if I can figure out the difference, if there's enough clarity on that at 20 or 30 feet. I hadn't tried that yet. So, and I'm not sure if I could. Honestly, I don't think I could, but a tree is a tree at 20 feet. Let's put it that way. Now, 30, 20 feet, whatever, I don't know. A tree versus a human standing there, if they're not moving, I'm not sure. But the good news is where I'm at, there ain't any humans out there. So that was an experience, though. It was a little, I wouldn't say scary, but kind of when a thing would roll or dip where I wasn't realizing it was going to. But again, I was going so slow, I could recover from it without any problem. And then beyond that, I had a little bit of a concern where, I had pushed really, really hard on something, and visually, I'm speaking about. I pushed really, really hard on it, and that evening, I did not have 15 inches of functional vision. It was down pretty low. I mean, it's probably 8 or 9. I mean, it was rough. And I was kind of concerned about, did I push so hard that I accelerated this downslide? But luckily, I let them rest, got up the next day, and I was back to somewhere in between 14 to 15 and a half, depending on exactly when you look at it and how you look at it. So thank the Lord Almighty, they bounced back for me on that. So I guess I just overdid it, and they were just overly tired. But I mean, they were tired for hours and hours. I mean, I went to bed, it was the same. So I was a little concerned by that, but, lesson learned. Be careful how much I use and abuse, and push the eyes, on that, because, for one day, if that had been a permanent slide, I probably would have kicked myself for a little while on that. Not that you can do anything about your mistakes in life. You just keep smiling, keep rolling, and pray to Jesus for forgiveness, because ain't one of us perfect. So, really, really excited. About to head off to O&M school, flying out to that, and then that's going to be interesting. I reread the information and the agenda, and basically, get up, go to breakfast, have a training session, go to lunch, training session, go to dinner, the optional nighttime training session, which I definitely will be participating in, and wash, rinse, repeat for Monday through Friday, 5 days straight. So if nothing else, I'm trying to lose some weight, so I guess that's going to help my step count, probably considerably help my step count. But I'm excited for that. I think it's going to be a lot of hard work. I know it's going to be a lot of hard work, but I think if I can walk away with some really strong learnings, that'll be good. Because I'm sure I'm doing a bunch of stuff. Maybe wrong is the right word. Probably, I could do it a lot better. That's probably the right way to say that. I'm certain. So we'll see how that goes. So on the next video, on 15, should be a lot to talk about from what O&M school is. That's orientation and mobility. What it looks like when you're there. Learnings from that and whatnot. So that's coming. And then, lastly, I'm just going to say this again. And, my biggest probably issues come in right now where I think I know an environment well enough so I don't pull out the cane. And yes, but something's changed. A great example is I know my road, which is a dirt road. But I know every pothole, every divot. I mean, I've memorized this sucker. But then it rained. And I hadn't accounted for how much of a change that was going to create on that sand. So I was out walking with my spouse, and not using my cane, and she's really good about trying to say, hey, there's a big dip there, but she didn't see it, and I didn't. It wasn't there before, but there was a rut that had been created from the rain and some car driving through it, I'm assuming. But it wasn't a rut that used to be there. And yeah, I twisted my ankle, twisted my back pretty good. And I was like, man, that was so dumb. I mean, I'm literally a few days from going to O&M school, and I just twisted up my back and ankle. Luckily, it was fine. You know, a day or two later, I was okay again. You know, no pain, no issues. But that was definitely something that I'll say. And you know, it's funny to say you've memorized every single pothole, divot, rut, whatever on, you know, probably half-mile road. And the answer is yes. It's amazing what you can do when you need to. And I would say that's probably true of all of us in all parts of our lives. It is amazing what you can do when you need to make something happen. So don't shortchange yourself. And if you are visually impaired, whenever possible, use your cane. And, you know, of course, I am speaking to myself on that too. And I mean, listen, I'm going to continue, at least right now, that's my plan, not to use it when I'm in an environment that I have memorized, because, you know, it's memorized. But long term, hoping as I get progressively closer to building a house on a piece of property we own, you know, then I'll be in an environment that I can better control and, you know, memorize. You know, in the 10 acres, every pothole, every divot, every piece of that property. And you might think, is that possible? And I'll tell you right now, the answer is yes. It's amazing what you can do. So, you know, and again, biggest thing that I keep coming back to is it's not me. You know, quite frankly, I pray all the time for all the different things, and the only thing I can tell you is just keep smiling, just keep rolling forward. And tomorrow's a new day, and it's a different day, and it's probably better than yesterday. And for me, and you know, not pushing it on you, but for me, just understanding that Jesus has got me, man. And there's a reason for this. And you know, as I said in my last video, I'm having so many more conversations with people that, I mean, from a you know, a faith-based perspective, but also just in general as well, that have been amazing. And you know, at least around here where we're at, people have been really, really cool about the situation, and it's been very enlightening for them, and honestly renewing my faith in humanity to a point too. So, and had I not gone blind, wouldn't have experienced that. So, trust in it and keep on rolling. All right, y'all be good out there. Peace out, Girl Scout.